Hey everyone, this is Emma with the Spirit Keepers. It is that time of year again. It's time for another Christmas Eve ghost story time. For those of you who don't know, during Victorian times, they used to tell ghost stories on Christmas Eve, so I always thought, why not do that on this channel? So every December 24th, there is always a new paranormal ghost story time video coming out. Before I get into it, I just wanted to let everyone know that I recently did start a Cameo. So I have the handle in the description box below, but I can do Cameo for any birthday greetings, any holiday greetings, or if you just need advice, you can feel free to reach out to me on Cameo. The ghost story that I'm going to tell you guys today is one of the scariest ghost experiences I've ever had in my life. Yeah, it's a pretty scary one. It definitely shook me up, and it takes a lot for ghosts to shake me up. So without further ado, I'm just going to get into that story. So this all started in 2019. One of my old roommates and I ended up moving into an apartment in Quincy. It was a 3-story building. It was originally a 1-family home. You could kind of tell, like it was kind of like a large mansion, and then they split it up into 3 apartments. And we ended up moving into the apartment on the 3rd floor, so the top floor. And initially things were going pretty well, and it got to a point probably like within a few months in where it's not that anything was really happening at this point, but I started getting the feeling that I was kind of picking up on a presence in the apartment. And like I said, I'm very sensitive, so I've picked up on presences before in different places. But the thing that really struck me about this was when I would pick up on this presence, my heart rate would go up. Like I remember like kind of feeling like my heart rate increasing every time I came into the room, and I just had this super big gut feeling that whatever was there was very negative or didn't want us there. And it happened a lot when I was by myself. So my roommate would go to work during the day, and it would be a situation where I would be home alone or something like that, and I would walk into the kitchen and things like that, and everything just fell off, and I just had a gut feeling that whatever was there did not want us there. And then in December, around December or January, that's kind of when things started to escalate, and I started to actually see things. So one of the scariest things I experienced while I was there was a one night where I was in the kitchen washing dishes. And it was probably about 8 o'clock at night, and like I said, this was in December or January, so by that point it was dark out. I was washing dishes in the kitchen, and that gut feeling that something was wrong kicked in. I knew immediately. I'm like, I am not alone right now. There is something off. So the way the kitchen was set up at this apartment is if you were in the entryway to the living room and you were at the sink in the kitchen doing dishes, your back is to the entry to the living room. So that's just something to be aware of. So I just had like this feeling that like something was behind me over by the entrance to the living room. And I didn't want to turn around, but I had a gut feeling to kind of look over at the window that was to my left in the kitchen. And the way that the windows were set up they were kind of at an angle. So the way, if you were to like look at the window at night, when it's more of like a reflection, you could see what was behind you through the reflection in the window. So I have this gut feeling, and I look over, and there is a face in the entrance to the living room. And in case it couldn't get creepier, not only was there a face in the living room area, no. The face was looking at me through the window. So what I mean by that is like, it wasn't standing in the doorway just looking at my back at the sink. it was looking through the window at the reflection of me in the window and making eye contact with me through that reflection. And I don't know how I didn't freak out, but I just decided, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna finish doing dishes and then just walk into my room and just ignore this. So that was the first really crazy thing that happened. When I was in my bedroom, sometimes I would feel like my legs being touched while I was in bed. That started happening a lot. Like later on, there was another incident, probably like a month after the kitchen incident, where this is another thing that had to do with reflections. This particular spirit really liked using reflections to mess with people and stuff. So I was in the living room, and we have a TV in the living room, and I remember watching TV and then turning off all the light, and it was at night once again, and I was turning off all the lights and the TV in the living room, and like getting ready to move over to my bedroom. And the way, once again, I have to explain the setup of the living room a little bit. The way it's set up is like the TV is facing the entrance to the kitchen. And so you can see a reflection in the TV when it's turned off of what's going on in the kitchen. And I was getting ready to move to the kitchen when I had a gut feeling that there was something in the kitchen over by the entrance to the TV room. And I was looking at the TV and just trying to see if I could like see what was going on in the kitchen or anything like that. And my heart sank because I looked in the kitchen and there was a shadow person in the entryway to the kitchen. And I was sitting there watching it, and there was like one quick, I swear on everything, one quick brief moment where the eyes of the shadow person in the kitchen were red. And then I heard a growl, and then it like slowly disappeared. And I was like, oh gosh, like this is not good. And I think I ran to my room after that. A few months after that, so we're getting into like the more February, March time frame, things started to quiet down. I kind of started to like ignore this feeling I was feeling. It just like kind of ground myself, remind myself that it's okay, everything's okay, like you're safe. Like I said, this is Quincy, Massachusetts, in like the New England area. And so we're like pretty close to Salem, and one day I was like, you know what, I'm gonna there's like this psychic with like a bunch of really good ratings. I'm just gonna reach out to her and like see what the future holds for me, that kind of thing. So I reached out to her, and I had this really awesome reading. It was like, I think an hour reading. It was like a really, really long one, and she did like a whole like analysis of me and all this stuff. And at one point during the reading, she turned to me and she was like, there's a man here with you. And I was like, oh, okay. I like not knowing what she meant by that. And then she kind of like continued, and she was like, yeah, there's a man here with you. And she said, she was like, I'm kind of concerned. And I asked her, I was like, oh, why are you concerned? And she said, she was like, typically when there is a spirit who like steps forward, typically she was like, I could get information in regards to like as some kind of an idea of who they are, or like where they come from, or what their intentions are. And she said, she was like, this man that's coming forward, I can't get any information on him. And she was like, I'm really like concerned for you because of this. And I was like, oh gosh. And I knew immediately, I'm like, this is the guy I saw in the living room and all this stuff, and who growled at me and had like red eye. I was like, this is what she's talking about. Like, if you ignore it, they will go away. But she was like, you have to be very careful. And she was like, with this particular one, I wouldn't address it. I wouldn't open yourself up to it at all. She was like, I would just, continue to ignore it, and eventually it'll go away. So I took her advice, and the activity with this particular spirit definitely died down, and I think he did eventually leave. less than a year after this, we ended up moving in with another roommate. So there was 3 of us, and we ended up moving into an apartment in East Boston, and that was also haunted. So that's like another story for another time. But I definitely think that the spirit that was haunting the East Boston apartment is a different one. It didn't feel negative, though. The kind of activity we were experiencing was very different from the one here. Again, this is like a totally different story for another time, but the point being is the activity did eventually go away. But that is my story time about when I was living in Quincy, Massachusetts, and was being terrorized by this terrifying, like, potential, like, negative, like, demon entity in our apartment. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe. I do have other, like I said, I do this every year, so I do have a bunch of paranormal ghost story times. So if you really like this one, please feel free to check out the other ones. There's so many in there. There's so many stories. Siobhan just had her story she told recently. So there's definitely plenty more coming, and especially in 2016, this has been a bucket list thing for me, but Greg Red and I finally ended up going to the Lizzie Borden house. I am so excited to tell you guys about our experiences there. It was insane. We did the Estes method there, and I literally had an experience that like it was so good that I feel like it really like changed everything for me in regards to the paranormal. So I can't wait to show that to you guys. It's gonna be another 3-part series, but there was so much happening at the Lizzie Borden house, and I can't wait for you guys to see. But I hope you have a wonderful holiday season, and I hope you guys have a great new year, and I can't wait to see you guys then. Take care. Bye.